Hello, welcome back to Spellbound. I'm BJ the Book Witch, and this is a list of book recommendations or cautions for young professionals or Gen Z entering the workforce. In my job, I read a lot, and for the past few weeks, I've been reading anything that I can get my hands on that's geared toward young professionals. Specifically, I've been trying to find reading material that's not only relevant to Gen Z, but also offers some actual practical and helpful tips right at those early stages of career starting. And what I discovered is that there's kind of a book drought. Now, let me be clear, there are plenty of books out there. Everything from here's how you should dress as a young professional to don't be afraid to get your male coworkers a cup of coffee in the morning. But there really isn't a whole lot that is specifically relevant to Gen Z, especially considering the last few years and what the reality of the landscape is for Gen Z entering the workforce. That being said, I do hope that there is at least a little bit of insight or helpful advice spread throughout the list of recs on this list. Getting from College to Career by Lindsey Pollak. So this is a getting started guide for college-aged millennials. And being published in 2012, I would definitely say that this book is written distinctly for millennials. However, even though some of the tools and resources are technically outdated, the intent of many of Pollak's tips are still relevant. This book is helpful because it's written in a listicle format with 90 tips of the trade organized into 10 chapters or sections of the job hunting journey. Though as I mentioned that many of the details here aren't specifically relevant, this is a good first step into entering the workforce, and at the very least, this book will help get you in the right mindset as you start to apply for jobs. Conversely, Leave Your Mark by Aliza Licht is a vanity piece and offers little practical advice. This book is more of a memoir than a self-help book and details the experiences of DKNY PR Girl, a PR brand manager for a clothing line that made the first foray into social media in 2008. I know, I didn't know who that was either, but she likens herself to the original Gossip Girl. Now, that was no doubt a groundbreaking experience and probably very worthy of the novelty examination of such a meta existence in 2008, but it's now been 14 years, and that sort of Gossip Girl anonymity isn't groundbreaking anymore. Every brand is on social media, and the extent to which a PR brand team engages with the public is becoming less and less formalized. Additionally, a lot of the advice within this book kind of contradicts itself, and that's because all of the advice is based on extremely specific and no longer relevant experiences from Licht's own life. And the entire book rings of hashtag not like other girls, where she uses several different examples of, while other girls was doing this, I was doing that, and that's why I got to where I am today. You actually probably can't do a lot of that anymore, but I did, and so let me give you some advice. It's not even that I didn't like the book. It was neat insofar as I was reading about a really neat career path from someone who started out by faxing their resume to a local newspaper's office and ended by convincing their clothing brand to join social media. That's neat. That's a cool career trajectory. But assuming that that trajectory has anything to do with or is anything mimicable for Gen Z entering the workplace now is naive at best and insulting at worst. Especially considering this groundbreaking social media personality is offering a lot of social media-based career advice while having retired before the normalization of the algorithm. And truthfully, any career advice that starts with your parents making a call to get you a job and get your foot in the door is not universal career advice, it's privilege at work. Read this book if you're in college and you really miss hearing your parents talk about how entitled kids these days are and how much harder they had to work to get to where they are now. Illogical by Emmanuel Acho. This was an interesting book to read. While not terribly focused and technically not the most well-written book out of the bunch, it is a debut book from a voice that I respect. It was also less advice-focused and more mindset-focused. So here, Acho uses his own life experiences to illustrate wisdom and proverbs that talk about driving toward your purpose despite logical barriers. Read this book if you're looking for inspiration, but not necessarily direction. Expect to Win by Carla Harris. This is my favorite book out of the bunch. So Carla Harris is incredible, first of all. Called a Wall Street powerhouse, she was appointed in 2013 by President Barack Obama to chair the National Women's Business Council. This book uses Wall Street and business metaphors for developing your professional image and perception in the workplace. While that may sound complicated or perhaps unnecessary to a young professional, I first read this book at 22, and it gave me incredible insight on how I needed to think and act with intention and alignment with the personal and professional brand that I wanted to convey. And after rereading this book for my current project, I found much of this content to be directly relevant to the oncoming Gen Z employees, especially those in client-facing roles. Read this book if you want a unique way of positioning yourself as both a highly valued individual and a necessary asset and investment to your organization. Atomic Habits by James Clear. This book was an interesting read. Clear provides scientific data and insight around habit theory and habit formation and offers a new method for developing new habits and breaking old ones. This book might be relevant if you're just about to start working and working full-time is a new experience for you. You might very well discover that some of your current habits need to be rewired in order to set you up for better success, productivity, and comfort as you begin working. However, this book spends more time on the theory part and it's not as easy or digestible on the method part. So read this book if you're curious or interested in brain patterns and habit development, but sign up for Clear's newsletter if you're in immediate need of his advice. Habitudes by Tim Elmore. This book was the most patronizing and degrading attempt at, quote, connecting to the next generation, as the dust jacket proudly suggests, through quotes from senior-aged white men, to the author, who is also a senior-aged white man. The intent of this book is to offer bite-sized workplace advice, offering a little bit of theory and reflection. However, the content within this book ranges from tone-deaf to simply irrelevant. And while nuggets of wisdom can always be found at the base root of good intentions, their applicability at face value without any discussion or nuance is tentative at best. Additionally, the total representation of men to women in this book was 68-7. That's 90%. The only positive examples of women mentioned in this entire book were J.K. Rowling, Barbara Bush, and the nameless, headstrong female intern who learned that getting coffee for her male coworkers was in fact not beneath her. Read this book if you're really interested in a lecture from a senior citizen on the work ethic of young professionals, knowing that the compensation rate for frontline employees has grown 11% since his working years, while the compensation rate for CEOs has grown 940%. Deep Work by Cal Newport. This book was interesting for the same reasons that Atomic Habits was interesting. Newport makes a case for unbroken focus time and offers strategies to accomplish it. For young professionals with a high degree of autonomy over their work, like individual contributors, gig workers, independent contractors, etc., the strategies offered within this book can easily be applicable and adaptable. But for frontline employees with little to no autonomy in their work, this book probably won't affect much change. Read this book if you're just starting out within your career path and you want to learn how to manage your own time more productively. Can't Even: How Millennials Became the Burnout Generation by Helen Petersen. This book is great. It's sincere and radical and yet completely straightforward and unflinching in its observations of the way that millennials move through life and their careers, as burnt out byproducts of the unregulated marketplace that late-stage capitalism has allowed. This book offers more history, insight, and a cultural lens with which to view yourself, your employer, and the American and global economy than it does practical workplace tips. So don't read this book if you're looking for a way to beat the system, because the point of this book is that the system itself is broken. And it is. This book was the only book out of the bunch that dared to address any real aspects of the workplace that actually affect young professionals, of what being employed in America is actually like. What we're told about employment, how organizations view employees, what the process of finding employment is actually like, and how for the past 50 years we have intentionally and systemically stripped away regulations that keep our capitalist economy functioning with any shred of humanity. Because the truth is, any conversation about career success for Gen Z that does not include the nuance of late-stage capitalism and the truth about the landscape that Gen Z employees are walking into, the invisible rung of women in leadership, the pay gap, basic racism and intersectionality statistics within the workplace, or even a baseline understanding of the values-based social and economic motivators for different generations within the workplace, i.e. work-life balance, is in fact not a conversation, it is an op-ed. And it is an op-ed from an outdated voice that has shaped the workplace into something that tells employees, specifically millennials and Gen Z, to value and treat yourself as a product. So read this book if you're looking for one more reason to become radicalized. But skip it if you're just looking for some resume tips. In reading these books for this project, I discovered that there's an incredible drought of not only relevancy, but of authenticity, of truth. These books aren't addressing the elephant in the room. They're offering tips and tricks for succeeding in a game that changed the rules a long time ago. And because of that, I've been struggling. I've been struggling on how to give real and practical but also genuine advice to young professionals and how to navigate a system that was designed for failure. But what I've learned on this project is that I'm passionate. Not just about the things I already knew I was passionate about, but I'm passionate about what comes next and who comes next. And it's not enough that I'm highly, highly critical of the baby boomers and Gen Xers who have demonstrated such an aggressive lack of humanity that I will spend my entire existence trying and hoping and working to fix their global and ethical mistakes. It's not enough if I don't advocate now for the Gen Z peers of mine who are entering the workforce and joining our ranks. It's not enough that I point out and criticize the state of affairs and how they have so shaped my life and my experiences and my entire generation if I'm actively leaving Gen Z out of that conversation. Because we're not alone. And that's what I've learned. Any conversation about the workplace from this point forward needs to be including Gen Z. We need to be having these conversations with Gen Z, not to Gen Z, because really the pandemic showed us what everyone's been afraid of all along. And that's when it comes down to it, everyone's going to be looking to millennials and to Gen Z to lead us out of this mess. Now that Xers and Boomers have proven themselves to be incompetent, unfeeling, and irrelevant. I hope, to any millennial and Gen Z viewers, that you're taking care of you. I hope that you're in a job that brings you satisfaction, but more than that, I hope you're paid a living wage. I hope that you're able to afford the basic necessities that you need to exist. And if that's not the case, I hope that you have hope. Because as I told a group of college students last week, we are an incredibly diverse, intelligent, well-rounded citizens of a global connected community. We know our worth, we know how to find answers to the questions that we have, and we are extremely capable. And if these books help you find or maintain or excel within employment, I think that's great. These are weird times, and they're weird because we don't talk about it. So I hope that these books, and the insight, tips, science, and even good intentions within them, is enough to help start more of these conversations. Take care. And as always, happy reading.